Gen AI tools like Leonardo AI are reshaping how creators generate and ideate visuals. I'm going to give you a structured approach of learning this in-depth application. We're going to be covering prompt crafting, settings, and how to integrate AI-generated images and videos into your workflow. I'm Nick Carraz, and I have over 25 years of experience in the creative industry. I know how important it is to balance the use of AI with human creativity and touch. Whether you're just getting started or looking to refine your AI-generated images with greater control, this course is going to help you get up to speed. Welcome to Learning Leonardo AI.
Before we dive into the course content together, there's a few things you want to keep in mind as you create generative imagery. One is that Leonardo.ai does have a free plan. However, the use around commercial use and the rights that you give up for using this free plan should be checked out. Leonardo does have a page all about commercial usage. And what you should know is that you're able to use the Leonardo website for both personal and commercial purposes. However, the content generated by users is subject and governed by their terms of service. In addition to that, images that are made public, and your images are automatically public with no way to make them private on a free plan, Leonardo AI and its successors retain the worldwide perpetual rights to use, copy, reproduce, process, adapt, modify, publish, transmit, and create derivative works of publicly display, publicly perform, sublicense, and distribute images and text prompts you input into the service, or any assets produced by the service at your direction. In fact, we'll actually see this where we can use a person's generative image inside of our own workflow as long as they've made it public. It's worth checking out the statement on commercial usage and getting up to date with your local laws as it comes to ethics and copyright, as in if you are producing work for a client and using generative imagery, do you have the rights to say that you have copyright? Now, at the beginning of this course, we'll all be walking through a workflow that you can access on a free plan. When we hop into subsequent chapters, I'll be starting to use paid features. You'll want to keep this in mind for your workflow and work around these limitations, as well as the maximum amount of credits that you have, and they're rolled over every 24 hours for image generation. Last but not least, you have access to exercise files as a LinkedIn Learning member. Simply download this to your computer and put it in a place that's readily accessible for you. If you double-click the exercise folder, there are certain images where I will prompt you during the exercises to upload them to Leonardo. And then there's an entire folder of examples that we'll produce in this course together that you can check out and use later on as you continue to generate imagery with Leonardo AI. With that said, let's hop into the content.
Imagine you're working with a skilled illustrator. Instead of sketching out rough drafts, you describe what you want. A golden retriever sitting on a mountain at sunrise. In seconds, they paint it, not by copying, but by drawing from everything they've learned about dogs, mountains, and light. That's how the text-to-image model works. It's like a visual chef, mixing ingredients, colors, shapes, styles, based on your request. Instead of brushes and paint, it uses pattern, data, and algorithms to create something new. So how does it actually work? Number one, it learns from data. These models are trained on millions of images paired with text descriptions. Over time, they start to recognize patterns, like how a cyberpunk city suggests neon lights, or impressionist painting means soft, textured brushstrokes. Number two, generating the image. When you type a prompt, like a futuristic city at sunset with flying cars, the AI doesn't pull from a massive database. Instead, it starts with a pattern of random noise, think of it like TV static, and gradually refines it, a process called diffusion, until an image emerges. Now last, number three, it refines the output. The model is always going to try to match your description, but it's not perfect. It might struggle with small details like figures or complex relationships. In addition, depending on how you write your prompt may influence the output. That's why in a professional workflow, AI-generated images are just a starting point and not the final product. Right now, text-to-image models are best for pre-visualization, brainstorming, and rapid ideation, helping to get ideas onto the page faster. But refining the details, adjusting lighting, and making meaningful creative choices, that's human work. The real power isn't in letting AI do all of it, but in knowing how to guide and refine it. Next, let's put this into the context of how Leonardo AI works.
Signing up for Leonardo.ai is extremely easy. All we have to do is head to the website. So I'm just going to type up here in my web browser, Leonardo.ai, press return, and we'll be presented with the intro page. If we are just getting started, rest assured we can simply click on the button and we'll be presented with a sidebar for a number of different ways that we can log in or sign up. In this case, we want to sign up, and I'm going to do so by using a third-party service, in this case, Apple. And since I am on a MacBook Pro, I'll use my Touch ID in order to sign in. Once you sign up, the best part about this is that you have a certain amount of free tokens that you can access per day, which will show you on the left sidebar. These are your fast tokens. If you're ever curious of how this compares to some of Leonardo AI's paid plans, simply click on the token icon, and here you'll be presented with a number of different ways where you can compare your free plan to different paid plans on a yearly as well as a monthly basis. We'll get into some of those specifics a little bit later. Let's use the arrow icon on the top left to navigate back and start to explore the community creations in the next video. Now that we've signed up for Leonardo.ai, we can start to explore the community creations. And that's going to be available to us in the main area of the interface. So if we just scroll down past feature guides, you'll see community creations. And this is imagery that has been chosen to be shared by paid users. And if you have a free account, your images are automatically public to the entire Leonardo community. The best part is we can start to explore what's possible with image creation from text prompts as well as image references. Right now, under community creations, I'm just exploring trending content, and we can always choose to look at top content or new content instead. And here we can see, based on ratings, what is appealing to the Leonardo community. In addition to top, we can see newly generated imagery by the community. And if I head back to trending, we can use certain tokens to filter our search, such as if we're looking for more photography-based images, we can see a ton of different images in a photographic style that we can take advantage of. Now, even better, if we're wondering what a user used to generate this image, we can click on it and we'll be presented with a pop-up window that shows us the prompt details. In this case, negative prompt details that were used in order to not show certain things in this image, not to mention the resolution, as well as the model that was used to generate this image. We can, at any point in time, copy the prompt or negative prompt used. And one of my favorite things to do, if we want to try this but add a little bit of more detail on our own, is click on the remix button. This is going to shoot us now over to the image creation section of Leonardo. And you saw a pop-up dialog box that came up saying that it wouldn't allow us to use all of the settings based on our plan to generate this image. You'll see it copied over the prompt, designing a vintage album cover for Lucky Clover. And we can see what the negative prompt is. And over to the side, you can see certain settings such as the image dimensions that are currently being used, how the quality of our image in terms of size, and how many images we are going to produce. On a paid plan, we can choose to produce less images. In our current free plan, we have to use 4. You'll notice that in order to produce 4 images, it needs a certain amount of tokens revealed to you at the bottom right of the text prompt field in order to make this generation. One thing we can do, though, is choose to make our images smaller, which will take less tokens to generate. And using these default settings now in that remix prompt, we can click on the generate button to see these 4 generations taking place. And also note, because we chose to generate, the amount of fast tokens that we have has gone down. And this 150 fast tokens renews once a day on a free account. So here are the images that Leonardo produced. And at any time, we can click on any of these and have a bunch of different options available to us, such as being able to download the image, organize it, or copy it for use in other areas. Close that image and just click on the back arrow on the top left of the interface to go back to the main Leonardo section and my community creations, where I can continue to explore different fields such as food, become familiar with the various images that have been generated by the Leonardo community. In the last movie, we became familiar with the community creations section, where we can explore image-generated content from our community. And if we find something we like, we can click on that image, discover the prompt details, as well as the model and presets that were used to generate that image, not to mention remix it and create our own images from that text prompt. In this movie, we're going to create our own images from scratch. Now, there are two different ways that we can go into the image creation section of Leonardo. One of those is just underneath the AI tools, simply clicking on the image creation section. Now we are in image creation, and any images that you have created will show up here on the bottom. And our main area of focus happens to be our ability to type a prompt or use an image as a reference in a number of different ways. Since we're just starting out and we're unsure of what we want, one thing we can do is ask Leonardo to roll the dice or come up with a prompt for us to try. If we come over here to the little star icon here at the side, simply choose New Random Prompt, and Leonardo will get to work providing us with a prompt that we can try. In this case, an electrifying, ominous, insectoid, fish-like creature, shimmering exoskeleton cracking with neon colors against a dark, foreboding backdrop. If this sounds interesting to us, we can simply generate this right now using the default settings, or alternatively, go back to that same star icon and choose a different random prompt, which might appeal to the certain aesthetic that we're looking for. A menacingly detailed gnome with grotesque features, every aspect teeming with horror amidst intricacy, and it goes on. Of course, we don't have to accept this prompt, and at any time we can select all of the contents and press delete. In fact, let's try out our own prompt. Before we do, I want you to note that I'm on classic mode. Flow state, this tab here, is something brand new to Leonardo, and we're going to get familiar with that in a few videos from now. We'll click on classic mode if it's not already selected. Let's type in this prompt. A 30-year-old man with green eyes wearing a baseball cap in downtown Manhattan. Shots on a 35mm lens. Now, in terms of prompt, giving detail is going to help generate images that reflect what you're looking for. Whatever you place at the beginning of the prompt is also going to be weighed more heavily than what you place towards the end of the prompt. If you're looking to see how detailed you can get with prompts, one thing you can do after you type something in that's very simple is ask Leonardo to take a look at the prompt and add more detail for you. So in this case of a 30-year-old man with green eyes wearing a baseball cap in downtown Manhattan and shot on a 35mm lens, we'll go back to this little star icon and ask it, in this case, to improve the prompt. We can see that Leonardo gets to work and has made a few changes, making the prompt longer. A young man, weathered by time and experience, gazes intently with emerald eyes beneath a worn baseball cap. Now, some of these details I don't actually want. I don't think I want to have emotion of someone who is weathered by time and experience. I can remove that from the prompt, or alternatively, actually come here to the star icon and ask it to edit it with AI. And in this case, I'm going to type in make man happy so that he's not so weathered by time and experience. I'll choose done. We can see here that the weathered by time and experience still is listed here, but beams with a warm smile. So in this case, I'll just remove the weathered by time and experience and use a young man beams with a warm smile, his emerald eyes sparkling with joy beneath a worn baseball cap. So now that we have this prompt, it's time to take a look at the settings that we're going to use to generate this image. One of the most important is the model that we'll be using for the generation. Phoenix 1.0 is the current default model being used for the generation of these images. There are various models for specific styles. In the case that you want something more cinematic and portrait, you have Cinematic Kino available to you, not to mention Portrait Perfect. You're looking for something more along the lines of graphic design or concept art. There are models for those styles as well. So I'll choose the Cinematic Kino and then just close out the model presets. We'll notice that the style currently being used to create these images is also cinematic. I can choose a few other ones. Maybe I'll choose portrait instead. The contrast for our photos is set to medium. And the only option we have for generation is fast generation. We can change the generation and have more options based on the model that we have, not to mention if we have a paid account. One of the biggest things that will have an impact on your image is the dimensions. By default, it will be set to 1 by 1, but I've changed this to 2 by 3. And then we have the quality of the image generated. Available to us on the free account, we have both small and medium. In order to use less generation credits, I'm going to choose small. I'll leave the number of images being produced as 4, as that's all I have option to on the free account. And now here in classic mode, with our prompt that we use both AI as well as Leonardo to edit it and make it more detailed, I'll choose to generate these 4 images. We'll see as these images generate the text prompt that we used here at the top available for us, the model, not to mention the style, and the amount of images being generated. So here are the characters generated from our text prompt. And maybe after we see this photo, we want to change this a little bit. So next to each image, we have a few options. One is to, at any point in time, reuse the prompt, which will load it back up here into the text prompt field. The other is to try to edit this with AI. In fact, I'm going to click on this pen icon. We'll edit with AI again, and I'll say, make image from 1930s in black and white at night. Now generate new images based on that information. And you should see that your text prompt was also changed. So Leonardo took in what you entered, and it then added in detail using AI in order to produce these new images, such as the circa 1930 that you see here, as well as shot on a vintage camera. And now we have something that was shot at night in a few photos, not to mention that black and white 1930s style that we asked for. As we produce this images, if you are on a free account, you're going to want to keep track of the amount of tokens that you are using. Right now, I'm already down to 85 based on the generations that I've made. Now, this renews every single day. So by tomorrow, you'll have another 150 tokens available. But if you are ideating, you may want to choose a smaller size in order to make sure that you don't use up all your credits. And that is how we can generate images using Leonardo.ai. We just produced our first images with Leonardo.ai from our own text prompt, not to mention using AI to refine our text prompt. In this movie, we're going to explore how style, not to mention models, will have an impact on our generated images. That these images that we see here and generated in the last movie were affected by a style of portrait and the model, which is Cinematic Kino. Just to see how much of an influence both the model and style have on an image, let's take a look by reusing this text prompt. So in fact, I'm going to click on the Reuse Prompt button, which then loads that up into the text prompt field here at the side. And I'm going to choose to change this model, in this case to graphic design. We'll notice that based on that model change, it also changes the style. Just like if I chose illustrative albedo, the style of the image changes as well. So I'll choose graphic design in this instance, close out the models and presets, and let's now generate these 4 images. And as they generate, I'm going to make yet another change. I'm going to use Leonardo's default model right now, Phoenix 1. We'll notice that we also have an option here now for prompt enhance, which will automatically enhance short prompts that are entered. We can also choose to turn this on all the time or off, depending on what we're looking for. And by default, we can notice that the style currently being used is dynamic. But There are still a number of other styles that we might want to take advantage of, such as sketch color in the Phoenix model preset. And this time I'll create another few images using this new sketch style, not to mention model. Now, if I scroll down to see the newly generated images in the graphic design style, we can see that these characters look a bit more caricature-esque than the previous style/model, which has a more cinematic, photorealistic feel to it. If we take a look at the last creation, we yet have another type of style of our subjects here. Now, if we wanted to further use the sketch color, we might want to change some of the text that's currently being introduced into the prompt, such as a artistic portrait photography of a young man to artistic portrait of a young man. Also, maybe not mention that it's a photograph, so I'll take out captured on a vintage camera, this black and white photograph, and I'll type in this sketch instead. Exudes a sense of urban grit and resilience, and I'll keep in the rest of the prompt. And now through these text prompt changes, not to mention the model as well as style preset, let's generate this again. Now, since I have now generated a few different sets of these images, we should note that the credit account that I have available on my free plan has diminished quite a bit. So you do want to keep this in mind on your free accounts when experimenting. Now that we've changed that text prompt with the infused style and the model preset, we start to see a much more sketch-like image come about based on those changes. And that is how both style and the model that you choose can have an influence on your text prompts when generating images with Leonardo.ai. So far, we've been creating imagery with Leonardo.ai simply using classic mode. We've either fed an image created from the user community or used it through our own text prompts and changing various models and styles. New to Leonardo.ai is flow state. To go to flow state, when you're in the image creation section, simply click on the flow state tab. This will now be available by default when you come in here the first time. The magic of flow state is it allows you to try a bunch of different styles right away when you use a prompt to see what's possible with image generation and how small little changes can make a world of difference. Because flow state is new, there's now a gift for both free and paid users where we can use this to generate up to 300 images per day on a free account with flow state just to get familiar with the workflow. So let's come up with a very simple prompt. I'm going to type in the Milky Way, seen out at sea in the Atlantic Ocean. I'll note that right now the style is set to automatic. However, we can enter a number of different styles, lighting, shot types, and color themes. But before we get into that, let's just generate with those automatic settings, seeing all the different types of images that Leonardo AI comes up with and completely different styles. So one is of a time lapse and not even displaying any type of Milky Way from the Atlantic Ocean. And we see others where we can select the photo, seeing that in this particular case, that this was shot on land. Others where we are in the middle of the ocean. So this is what we're going for. We could always click more like this, and flow state will get to work and start creating another large grid of images similar to that style, but just producing so much more and showing you those possibilities. Now, because we're on a free plan, we have only a certain amount of images that we can generate with flow state. And just with 2 text prompts and me simply clicking more like this, I've already used 42% of my daily limit. So something you're going to want to keep in mind when experimenting with this. Let's just say that this is not even close for what we're looking for. We can, of course, add to our text prompt and then start to play around with the lighting style as well as color theme to fine tune this even further. This is where I'm going to change the vibe completely. In fact, I'm going to make the vibe sci-fi. I'll make the lighting backlit. We'll choose the shot type to be cinematic. And let's make the color theme in this instance earth tones. Now that we've set these various styles, I'll also change the image dimensions to be 69 in this case, I'll ask FlowState to generate again. Now with these anchored styles and my new image dimensions, FlowState has now produced another series of images based on this. Only a certain amount. I'm going to ask it to load more images, knowing that I'm now using more of my daily limit, and I can continue to do so until I find something close that I'm looking for. In this case, I like this shot of this man on a cliff. I'll click more like this, and FlowState will get to work producing even more images just like that. As we can see, using FlowState is a great ideation machine inside of Leonardo.ai, giving you multiple generated images at once in multiple styles that you can take to refine your work and find the images that you're looking for. In addition to using text prompts to generate imagery, we can use images to generate other images. Now, we were using FlowState in the last movie, which allows us to enter a text prompt and then produce a variety of rapid succession images in different styles right away. In order to access the image-to-image generation mode, in the image creation section, we're going to switch from FlowState back to classic mode. In classic mode, in the text prompt field, you'll see a little picture icon. And if you have access to the exercise files, I've included an image for you that you can use for the generation of new images. So let's click on that picture icon. And just note that depending on the model that you have chosen, you'll have various options for image guidance. What we're interested in right now is image to image, which is going to be a creative reinterpretation of the vibe and structure of our reference image. So let's click on that. And the image that we're looking for happens to be this of the abandoned plane, which is going to be available in your chapter 1 folder. So if we go to upload an image, here I am in the chapter 1 folder. It's the 0x5A6613 image. I won't re-upload this because I already have access to it. So I'm going to click on this and I'll choose confirm in order to add this image into the type of prompt field. Next to the image on the bottom right-hand corner, if you click on the downward arrow, we do want to keep in mind a few things. One is the strength or weight of how much this image is going to influence the creation of the new images. Right now, the strength is kind of low, which allows for Leonardo AI to take more creative interpretation of your image. If we want it to follow along a little bit closer, one thing we can do is drag this strength slider up a little bit more so this image has more weight on what's created. So I'll choose the strength here of 0.37. At the bottom right, if it hasn't already been chosen, you do have an option to make sure that the aspect ratio of the photo that you've uploaded is going to be matched. And if you click on that, you'll have a more realistic interpretation. I'll close out that image pop-up window. And I do want to show one other thing that we can do to make sure that we have new images that closely look like the image that we uploaded. If we go back to the star icon here on the bottom right, we have this option, which is to describe with AI. If I click on that, we can re-choose the uploaded image and choose confirm. And Leonardo is going to get to work entering a text prompt describing what it sees in the image. So in this case, it sees an image that depicts a landscape scene featuring the wreckage of a silver metallic airplane fuselage, partially buried in a desolate black sand terrain. The prompt goes on, and the best part about this is that we can use the majority of this prompt, but then make slight changes to it so that we enhance it and generate something new. In this case, I want to own in on the last part of the description, which is the sky is overcast, casting a muted light over the scene. Not very interested in this, so I'm going to select that whole last line and delete it. The other thing I want to make sure is that the fuselage is only adorned with various stickers. I'll ignore their graffiti and adding a layer of color to the otherwise monochromatic scene. So just the fuselage is adorned with various stickers. Now, instead, for the last line, we're going to say the scene is at night with a colorful sky because of the active northern lights overhead. Again, now just a couple things that we want to keep in mind because we're adding this to the end of the text prompt. It's not being considered as greatly as the information here at the beginning of the text prompt. So we may want to play around with the order depending on what's generated. But now that we've made changes to the generated description and we have this image reference currently in the aspect ratio of the existing photo, let's just take a look here at our settings. We're going to change the style as well. Instead of being sketch color, I'll choose stock photo. And for prompt enhance, I'm actually going to just turn that off. Keeping the contrast as medium and the generation as 4, I'll generate using these 16 credits. Leonardo gets to work, and here we can see the abandoned airplane. It didn't take in the night component of the scene, but I'm going to make a few changes to the text prompt that's still available to us here at the top. I'm going to just take that last line, the scene is at night, and I'm going to cut it. I want to move it to the beginning of the text prompt. In addition to the image that I'm using as a reference, I'm going to bring down the strength so that there's more creativity on Leonardo's end for producing the images. I'm going to click on generate and see what Leonardo comes up with. Now we can start to see the northern lights in this photograph. Now I'm going to just click on the 4 new generated images. Because of the creative interpretation and changing a few things within our text prompt, we get something closer to seeing the northern lights in the sky. We might want to make even further changes here into the description in order to get what we're looking for. And that is how we can upload an image to Leonardo.ai in order to create new imagery. Now we're going to explore multiple different ways that we can use images as we go throughout this course, from character creation to defining poses. When it comes to generating imagery with Leonardo.ai, you may soon discover that your free plan doesn't have a lot of features that you're hoping for. As we've discussed, you're limited to 150 tokens per day in terms of processing images. As we take a closer look at the image creation section, you may have noticed these little icons next to different generation modes. And when you see the little icon on the top right-hand corner, you'll know that this is a premium feature that you have to subscribe to access. So this includes how fast you can generate imagery. You're also limited to not producing larger based images and just medium and small. You have to produce 4 images at a time. You can't limit the number of images or increase the number of images as well. When I click that downward arrow next to images, we can start to see the different plans that we can have access to. And there are a few things you want to take in mind when it comes to just the first tier paid plan. One is that you can create private generations versus having your generated artwork be displayed publicly at all times. Another thing is that you can generate multiple jobs simultaneously. A job is when you send off your text prompt or the image that you're referencing in order to create the newly generated artwork. Other things also include that if you're playing around with motion videos, which we'll do later in this course, you can have that without a watermark, not to mention that any tokens that you don't use, you can roll that over for future use. And depending on how much you generate in terms of imagery, you may then want to take a look at some of the other paid tiers that are available for you for more tokens, as well as more of a rollover, as well as produce generative artwork a lot faster. And last but not least, even create your own training and data sets that you can use when generating new imagery. So there are a few differences between the free plan, where you're limited to 150 fast tokens. You've got only public images, not to mention several other features when it comes to both advanced as well as how many images you can create. And you can compare that to the paid plans that are available. While the detail that you place into a text prompt will influence your generated image, you can also control the end output through negative prompting and telling Leonardo what you don't want to see in the final result. Let's explore this in this video. So let's hop over into the image creation section. I'm here in the center of the interface, and I'm just going to click on the image creation button. Now, a couple changes happened in the background. I'm now on my paid Leonardo account, and I have no features that are locked. And some of these advanced settings that we will be covering in the next few videos are only available on a paid account. So if you find a limitation, that is because you need to upgrade. But it will give you still a sense of the workflow and what's possible through generated images. Let's start off with a text prompt. So let's type in an establishing shot of a jungle at night. It's filled with creatures and animals of all shapes and sizes, lurking in the shadows as the moon shines overhead. Let's take a look at the settings here at the side. I'm currently using the Phoenix 1.0 model. I'm going to change the prompt enhance away from automatic, which is going to try to take a short prompt and add more detail and just turn it off for the time being. We'll set the style to be creative. I'll have the contrast be set to high, the generation mode to fast, and we'll have the image dimensions at 16:9 with a medium quality. Of course, go for small if you want to have less credits being used. We'll also use the default number of images that are available to us at 4. And just note I'm in private mode on my paid account, so these images that I'm generating won't be shared publicly. I'll click on Generate, noticing the tokens involved. And here are the 4 generated images. So there's a ton of different creatures here within each of these 4 photos, including elephants. We've got some really big reptiles and some really large monkeys, etc. In order to control the type of creatures that are here, we might want to run this text prompt again. The great thing is right now the text prompt is still located here in the above field, but what we can do to tell it what not to generate is go here to advanced settings and activate negative prompt. Inside your text field, you now have a negative prompt section. And what we can do is start to enter what we don't want to see. I'm going to enter elephants, reptiles, large creatures, and palm trees to have them avoided from the jungle look. And I'm going to choose to generate again. And notice here our text prompt, and just at the bottom where it says negative prompt, those words being taken into account. Now let's see the influence it's had over this new generation. So here we have an image with a lot more monkeys. I don't see any elephants, not to mention there are no palm trees. We've got a lot of different types of cats here in the foreground, not to mention other creatures that weren't in our initial generation. So negative prompting can have a huge influence over the images that are generated. Let's take a look at one more text prompt example. So I've cleared my text prompt as well as negative prompts from the last jungle generation, and I'm going to type in an aerial shot of the city of Toronto, shot during sunset. In order to just add a bit more detail to this prompt, I'm going to click on the star icon here at the side and just ask it to improve the prompt. An enchanting aerial depiction of Toronto during sunset captures the city's skyline aglow with warm hues in the fading sun. Now, in this case, I'm actually going to remove this second line where it mentions the CN Tower and the rays of light. And I'll keep the third one here where this is vivid photograph showcases the vibrant cityscape with skyscrapers reaching towards the colorful sky, mirrored in the serene waters of Lake Ontario. And I'll also just remove this last third line about tranquility. Now, in terms of the negative prompt, I actually don't want to see the CN Tower, which is what most people will show you when they see the city of Toronto, but I would like just a different skyline view. So this is a great use of a negative prompt. I'll also type in Air Canada Centre as well as Rogers Centre, a couple other things that are depicted in the city skyline for the city of Toronto. Now, just going over here to the settings, I'm just going to change the Phoenix model in this case to that of stock photography, noting that the style also changes to stock photo. I'll make this a 16:9 image, keeping the quality at medium and the image is at 4, and noting that that negative prompt is turned on from the last text prompt that we did. And with these settings, I'll notice that it's going to take 13 to generate this based on now the different model that I'm using. And let's see what Leonardo comes up with now that I've entered those negative prompts. So as we can see here, it did still in some cases keep the CN Tower here with the stock photo and some of the iconic elements. Let's continue to explore some advanced options that are available inside of Leonardo AI to create other types of generated imagery. In my opinion, one of the coolest features of Leonardo AI is your ability to create images without backgrounds. This can be great for all types of workflows, including icons, text, where you can create generated assets and then bring them into another application for fine-tuning your design workflows. Let's take a look at how we can use this, and keep in mind that this is a feature on a paid plan. So in the last movie, we explored negative prompting, and what we'll do here in the image creation page is just remove the text prompt and also get rid of the negative prompt by clicking on the X. That will turn off the negative prompt in the advanced settings. Let us start with a prompt to create a series of icons. I'm going to type in a grid of playful icons depicting computer and phone technology. Since this prompt is so short, I'll use Leonardo to improve the prompt, and let's see what it comes up with. A whimsical animated grid of interactive icons showcasing modern computer and phone technology. So I don't like the word whimsically animated, so I'll remove that from the grid. I like the idea of the icons being colorful and dynamic, each symbolizing a different digital function or application. And I like the line of this illustration, pops with vibrant hues and intricate details, bringing the viewer into the world of technological possibility. No need for the last line, so I'm going to select the clarity and precision and just remove that by deleting it. In terms of model preset, I'll come here to the top and we can actually choose graphic design. This automatically switches us to the graphic design 2D style. However, there are several other graphic design styles that you can choose from depending on what you're looking for. Since I want this to be more vector-based art, I'm going to choose graphic design vector. We'll create a series of 4 images. Here, under advanced settings, is where I'm going to toggle on transparency. In terms of size, I don't want this to be 69. In fact, I'm going to go over to image dimensions where it says more, drag the slider here to make the image more tall, and in this case, 2x3 when it's displaying that icon grid. Now, you might not see some of these image dimension options if you're not on the paid account. So I'm going to press X to close that out. Knowing that I'm going to be using 13 tokens, I'm now going to click on Generate. Leonardo AI gets to work. Now, you may have noticed that this image generation took a little bit longer than other generations based on that we're asking for a transparent background. But let's just take a look at what it's come up with. This doesn't appear to be transparent in this case, but with the other backgrounds here, as well as computer text icons, we do have a few without a background. We can also see that next to our text prompt, there is the word transparent next to it. And one thing we want to keep in mind when we take this image and download it, we'll see that this is a PNG file, and PNG files contain transparency. And now we can use this in a number of different applications. So after looking at that icon in the background, I just ran a few different jobs to give you some more ideas of how you might be able to use transparent images. Here, using the photographic model, I produced images of a Bichon frieze with a smiley face here on a transparent background, which I can bring into any photo or illustrative compositor for further work. Here is a collection of tiger faces as a sticker. In this particular case, an illustrative model style in order to get this sticker look. Last but not least, using the concept art model and producing a character sheet, I asked for a man in his 30s lost in the woods, and I came up with these characters on a transparent background. While exploring different models and styles, we can create a ton of transparent assets that we can then further use in other compositing applications for our creative work. And that is how we can use transparency inside of Leonardo AI. In this video, we'll become familiar with how we can create tile or seamless images that we can use for a number of workflows from imagery to motion. Let's start off with a text prompt in the image creation field and become familiar with this under advanced settings. So first of all, I'll type in an old brown grungy textured paper background. Now we'll use the Phoenix 1.0 model preset. Also have the prompt enhance enabled. We'll set it to auto, which will assist especially if our prompts are short. We'll leave the style as dynamic, which was automatically set up when we chose the Phoenix model. I'll make the contrast medium. For these images, we'll make them one by one and set the image dimensions to be medium. And under advanced settings is where we're going to enable our tiling. So I'm just going to enable this button and then just go over here to the question mark to show that it says it's ideal for repeating textures or backgrounds. With all of this set up, let's choose to generate this. Leonardo gets to work producing these 4 images. So here are the textured backgrounds that it came up with. And we can see here that it's done quite a bit to our prompt there in the background because we set up the prompt enhance. So more age, distress, brown paper background with visible tears and wrinkles. We may want to reuse this prompt and then edit this if there's too much stuff going on. So I think that in my case, I like the visible tears, but I don't like so many wrinkles being shown. And I also don't like the intricate network of fine lines. So I'll remove that and just keep the specks, imperfections, giving it a tactile organic field. So with these slight changes and just making sure tiling is still enabled, let's generate these images again. Okay, so here are the 4 set of images with less lines. And just to show this, I'm going to select the second image from our first job. I'll choose to download it, close that out. I'll choose the 4th image from the second generation and download that as well. One thing to make sure that this is perfectly seamless, as every once in a while it won't produce a seamless image, is to give this a check. So I have a website for you. If you head to the following URL, you'll be presented with a seamless texture checker. And if you click on the file button, I'll import, first of all, the second downloaded image. And we have a slider here where we can check to make sure that it is in fact seamless and good for our purposes. We'll go here again to file. And there was the first image with all of the lines. Also looks like it is a seamless image. We can now import this into our application of choice and continue to use this. Seamless textures have a wide variety of possibilities because we can download a low quality image in terms of its size and have it extend by using various effects that seamless quality and replicated pattern. And that is how we can create seamless tiles inside of Leonardo AI. In the last movie, we became familiar with the community creation section, where we can explore image-generated content from our community. And if we find something we like, we can click on that image, discover the prompt details, as well as the model and presets that were used to generate that image, not to mention remix it and create our own images from that text prompt. In this movie, we're going to create our own images from scratch. Now, there are 2 different ways that we can go into the image creation section of Leonardo. One of those is just underneath the AI tools, simply clicking on the image creation section. Now we are in image creation, and any images that you have created will show up here on the bottom. And our main area of focus happens to be our ability to type a prompt or use an image as a reference in a number of different ways. Since we're just starting out and we're unsure of what we want, one thing we can do is ask Leonardo to roll the dice or come up with a prompt for us to try. If we come over here to the little star icon here at the side, simply choose New Random Prompt, and Leonardo will get to work providing us with a prompt that we can try. In this case, an electrifying, ominous, insectoid, fish-like creature, shimmering exoskeleton cracking with neon colors against a dark, foreboding backdrop. If this sounds interesting to us, we can simply generate this right now using the default settings, or alternatively, go back to that same star icon and choose a different random prompt, which might appeal to the certain aesthetic that we're looking for. A menacingly detailed gnome with grotesque features, every aspect teeming with horror amidst intricacy, and it goes on. Of course, we don't have to accept this prompt, and at any time we can select all of the contents and press delete. In fact, let's try out our own prompt. Before we do, I want you to note that I'm on classic mode. Flow state, this tab here, is something brand new to Leonardo, and we're going to get familiar with that in a few videos from now. We'll click on classic mode if it's not already selected. Let's type in this prompt. A 30-year-old man with green eyes wearing a baseball cap in downtown Manhattan. Shots on a 35mm lens. Now, in terms of prompt, giving detail is going to help generate images that reflect what you're looking for. Whatever you place at the beginning of the prompt is also going to be weighed more heavily than what you place towards the end of the prompt. If you're looking to see how detailed you can get with prompts, one thing you can do after you type something in that's very simple is ask Leonardo to take a look at the prompt and add more detail for you. So in this case of a 30-year-old man with green eyes wearing a baseball cap in downtown Manhattan and shot on a 35mm lens, we'll go back to this little star icon and ask it, in this case, to improve the prompt. We can see that Leonardo gets to work and has made a few changes, making the prompt longer. A young man, weathered by time and experience, gazes intently with emerald eyes beneath a worn baseball cap. Now, some of these details I don't actually want. I don't think I want to have emotion of someone who is weathered by time and experience. I can remove that from the prompt, or alternatively, actually come here to the star icon and ask it to edit it with AI. And in this case, I'm going to type in make man happy so that he's not so weathered by time and experience. I'll choose done. We can see here that the weathered by time and experience still is listed here, but beams with a warm smile. So in this case, I'll just remove the weathered by time and experience and use a young man beams with a warm smile, his emerald eyes sparkling with joy beneath a worn baseball cap. So now that we have this prompt, it's time to take a look at the settings that we're going to use to generate this image. One of the most important is the model that we'll be using for the generation. Phoenix 1.0 is the current default model being used for the generation of these images. But there are various models for specific styles. In the case that you want something more cinematic and portrait, you have Cinematic Kino available to you, not to mention Portrait Perfect. You're looking for something more along the lines of graphic design or concept art, there are models for those styles as well. So I'll choose the Cinematic Kino and then just close out the model presets. We'll notice that the style currently being used to create these images is also cinematic. I can choose a few other ones. Maybe I'll choose portrait instead. The contrast for our photos is set to medium. And the only option we have for generation is fast generation. We can change the generation and have more options based on the model that we have, not to mention if we have a paid account. One of the biggest things that will have an impact on your image is the dimensions. By default, it will be set to 1:1, but I've changed this to 2:3. And then we have the quality of the image generated. Available to us on the free account, we have both small and medium. In order to use less generation credits, I'm going to choose small. I'll leave the number of images being produced as 4, as that's all I have option to on the free account. And now here in classic mode, with our prompt that we use both AI as well as Leonardo to edit it and make it more detailed, I'll choose to generate these 4 images. We'll see as these images generate the text prompt that we used here at the top available for us, the model, not to mention the style, and the amount of images being generated. So here are the characters generated from our text prompt. And maybe after we see this photo, we want to change this a little bit. So next to each image, we have a few options. One is to, at any point in time, reuse the prompt, which will load it back up here into the text prompt field. The other is to try to edit this with AI. In fact, I'm going to click on this pen icon. We'll edit with AI again, and I'll say, make image from 1930s in black and white at night. Now generate new images based on that information. And you should see that your text prompt was also changed. So Leonardo took in what you entered, and it then added in detail using AI in order to produce these new images, such as the circa 1930 that you see here, as well as shot on a vintage camera. And now we have something that was shot at night in a few photos, not to mention that black and white 1930s style that we asked for. As we produce this images, if you are on a free account, you're going to want to keep track of the amount of tokens that you are using. Right now, I'm already down to 85 based on the generations that I've made. Now, this renews every single day. So by tomorrow, you'll have another 150 tokens available. But if you are ideating, you may want to choose a smaller size in order to make sure that you don't use up all your credits. And that is how we can generate images using Leonardo.ai. While we've been exploring the different styles available to us in both flow state and classic mode, when we apply that to a text prompt, we can also use images as a style reference to affect our generated output. Let's see how this works in this video. First off, if you're not already there, head over to your image creation page. And if you have access to the exercise files, what we're going to do is click on the picture icon to the left of the text prompt. And at the very top here, we're going to choose style reference. You'll see here that there are certain image guidance options down here, especially if we click on view more, which say coming soon. And the reason it is currently set to coming soon is it's not available with the model that we have selected. So if we switch this over to Kino, we'll have access to many of the things that you see here, not to mention the photographic model that's available to us. So let's choose style reference. I'm going to click on confirm. Here are some images I've uploaded, and two of them that are uploaded are what we are going to be uploading. And all we have to do is go to upload an image. You're going to head over to your exercise files. You'll see a style reference folder. You'll need to upload the volcano shot, followed by the macro shot of this plant. Once those are uploaded, we can reference them. Let's start off by using this image as the style reference. Once I click on it, I'll choose confirm. We'll see here at the top this image with the word style next to it. And if we click on the downward arrow, the default strength of the style that's going to be applied along with the text prompt is set mid-range. If we want this image and its style to have more of an influence over the generated results, we can increase that. Let's put it at a high value. Let's type in a close-up of beautiful roses and raindrops falling on the petals. Noticing here at the side, we have prompt enhance set to auto. The style is currently set to none. Contrast is medium. And for image dimensions, we'll keep it at 1 by 1 and the medium quality size. And we'll generate 4 images. Let's choose generate. So here we can see images clearly with roses and the water that are falling on the petals, and how that image's style influenced these shots. Now I'm just going to come up here quickly to the top, and next to the image that being used as a style reference, I'm going to click the downward arrow and set this all the way to max, and I'll generate this job. And I'll do this one more time. I'm going to click on the downward arrow, set the strength style reference setting to low, and generate this. First of all, we can see when the style reference is set to ultra, we're starting to see more of the style of the image than actual even roses. And in fact, some of these roses happen to be green. And with a lower setting, we see more of the text prompt being taken into account with the roses and less influence of the actual image when it comes to a style reference. Now feel free to come here to the top and click directly on the photo where we have the option to load another style reference. In this case, you could load the volcano. That's going to swap out the style reference of the close-up of the plant. Let's click on the downward arrow next to style and just set this, in this case, to high. And this time, I'm going to type in an establishing shot of a beautiful city under siege. To match the dimensions of my style reference, I'll set the image dimensions to 16:9, keeping the quality at medium and the number of images at 4, also noting no style being added and the auto prompt enhance because my text is short. I'll now generate, and here we can see, since we didn't clarify the type of city, several different types of cities with that volcano style being added to each of those ones. As we can see, the information here can be extremely valuable for producing further images and using style references in the future. And that is how we can use an image as a style reference along with a text prompt inside of Leonardo AI. Just like we can feed Leonardo AI a style reference to help influence our text prompt, we can also feed in an image to be used as a content reference. And we'll see the differences in this movie. Now, just a word to mention, we're going to be working in classic mode in the image creation section. Now, one thing we want to keep in mind is that this mode at the time of this recording, when you click on the picture icon in the text prompt field, is not available with the Phoenix 1.0 model. So we're going to need to change that. In this case, we'll use the illustrative albedos, and I'll just close out this model window, noting that the style is also changed to illustration. We'll click on the picture icon, now seeing that content reference is available. And here we'll upload an image. And if you have access to the exercise files, I want you to click on that upload an image button, find the content reference folder. What we're looking for is a picture of a waterfall with some people in front of it. We'll upload that to Leonardo, and we'll now see that the picture has been added into the text prompt field. If I click the downward arrow, it's being used as a content reference, which means that it's using all the contents within the photo, and whatever we type in, it's going to try to overlay it on top of this image. Now, to see this, just like style reference, we have different strength levels, except a little bit less. We'll keep that at mid. And we also have a recommendation here at the bottom, which is to get the best results out of this content reference, we should match the aspect ratio. If we click on the match button, we'll notice that the image dimensions get switched here to more. And if we click on more, we'll notice that it's using a custom dimension based on the photo that we uploaded. Let's close that out. We'll type in a beautiful, majestic waterfall at night. Knowing that we're using a mid-value content reference, along with our text prompt, we've got the aspect ratio set and the style and model is set to illustration. Let us now render a job of 4 images in the medium quality. So I'll click on generate and let's take a look at what it did. So we see now a waterfall at night, but how the waterfall looks, the people in front of it, as well as the content of the scene have been carried over. Setting this to even higher would produce results closer to the image itself. Let's try this one more time. I'm going to click on the image and we'll use a different reference. So if you go upload an image, there's a second image there for you of some icebergs. This time, we'll click the downward arrow and then just choose a high content reference. And let's change the model to be concept art. And we'll change the style not to be a character sheet, but an environment. I'll close out the model presets. And just to make sure that everything matches, I'll click the downward arrow again and make sure that we match the aspect ratio of the photo just uploaded, which will switch it to the new dimensions. Let's just type in a ship floating at sea around giant icebergs. Now, with our high content settings and the model and style presets, let's generate these new images. Okay, so we can definitely see that the style that we applied here, the concept art, is being applied over top of the photo. But in many cases, in order to keep the contents of the reference we gave, which is high, we're not seeing a ship in most of these photos. These last 2 photos do have a ship though. So we might want to bring down our photo settings in order to get our desired results. And that is how we can use an image as a content reference along with a text prompt to generate images inside of Leonardo.ai. Easily create consistent characters with Leonardo AI, just like we can feed in our text prompt an image as a style reference and a content reference. We can also use a character image reference along with a text prompt to have a character in a variety of different situations. To see this, let's head over to the image creation section, which we've been using over the last few movies. What we'd like to do is first of all set our model here to cinematic Kino. This is going to give you more cinematic and photorealistic photos. We'll change the style in this case to cinematic close-up. And now, just to the left of our text prompt field, click on the picture icon. We'll choose character reference, and rather than upload a reference image, we can head straight to the community feed. Now, this is going to change based on the time that you're watching this video. So find a character that you like, but in this case, I'm going to use this friendly little 3D turtle. I'll confirm this, and let's see him in another environment. So I want to type in a close-up of a friendly child turtle playing basketball in an enchanted swamp. The basketball court is made of plants. If we click on the photo of the character reference, right now it has a weight of mid. We're going to set this to high, and we'll just head down to the image dimensions because our model settings are already set. Keeping that at medium and our number of images being set to 4 will generate. And while this generates, we're going to try a few different models to see the impact that it's going to have on our generated imagery. So I'll head back here to model. We'll choose graphic design and make that a 3D graphic design. I'll close this out and just choose generate again. And I'm going to also make an illustrative style. There's several different illustrative styles, but I'll choose 3D render in this case. And again, with a high character prompt and referencing of this text prompt, I'll generate again. And this is one of the magical features of Leonardo AI. We can try multiple different models and styles, and on a paid account, have multiple jobs processing at once. Okay, here is the result of our first cinematic model character with the character reference. Here is the 3D graphic design style of our turtle playing basketball. And last but not least, here is the illustrative style. You can see similarities with that and the design style that was chosen. A few other things to mention. I'm going to head back to the top where we've been prompting and try something here with the illustrative albedo style. But this time, I'm going to type in an establishing shot here at the top. While I click the image, in addition to the character reference, something we haven't looked at is adding elements. If I choose view more here at the bottom, these elements were trained on information in order to give your generated images a specific type of style. And what we can do is choose one of these, but keep in mind that in some cases it references specific models for the best results. In this case, I'm going to apply the fantasy icon, choose confirm. So here is the result of adding that element onto our 3D render illustrative style. Last but not least, when it comes to consistent characters, keep in mind that we can also train a data set on multiple photos to get more accurate results when creating characters in multiple scenes. And we'll cover that in another movie. One of the best options we have on a paid plan with Leonardo.ai is the ways that we can manipulate an image after we've generated it. I have this set of turtle characters we created in the last movie for our character reference, which I really happen to like, and I want to upscale the original creation. You'll see here, if we take a look at this 3D render, it was originally in a 960 by 960 pixel format based on the medium image dimensions that we chose. At the very bottom of the image are several options that we'll cover over the next few movies, and right in the middle is our ability to upscale this image. So I'm going to click on this button, and we have a few options that are available to us. And again, this all depends on the account that you have. So here's the original image. We have a style of upscaler, so realistic or artistic. And artistic is going to take some creative liberation in order to upscale the image. But in this case, we're going to choose realistic. We also have an upscale multiplier. So you'll notice that currently the multiplier is set to the maximum of 2, which is going to double the style of the image. And then we have an upscale strength available to us. So this is how much we want to balance creativity with the detail, contrast, and similarity of the original image. So in this case, we'll leave it at its high setting. And last but not least, we have advanced settings that are hidden to us. So creativity sparks a little bit of creativity and is going to make some changes when this upscale takes place. If we want it to be closer to the original image, we're simply going to just dial down this creative amount, which I'll do here. Then we have controls for the amount of detail, the similarity, which we can scale up in this instance. Now, every time that you do choose to upscale one of your images from a job, keep in mind it's going to cost you credits. And in this case, I'm going to choose, knowing that, I'm going to upscale this image. We can see there that it starts working on this in the background. Now, the best part is, of course, with our paid account and our tokens, we can try different types of upscales. So in this case, I'm actually going to choose artistic instead of realistic. And under advanced settings, increase the default creativity strength, where I'll leave the detail contrast and the similarity as is. I'll click on upscale. Okay, I can see that the thumbnail of the image that we just upscale has changed. In fact, if I click on this, here's the ultra upscale. And just to see the differences, I'm going to click on this downward arrow on the bottom left-hand corner where it says ultra upscale. Here, we can see the ultra upscale from the drop down that we're currently looking at is artistic. Here is the ultra upscale realistic. And here is the original image. You can see in many cases, it added a bit more detail in the creative, especially on the turtle's skin. Next to the ultra upscale, the realistic, looking very similar to the original image, however, double in size. At any point in time, we simply go to the chosen ultra upscale that we want to download, and then download that image onto our computer by clicking the corresponding button. And here's that upscaled image being displayed in preview, and we can see pixel height and width now match that of our upscaled image. And that is how we can upscale generated images inside of Leonardo AI. While Leonardo AI can create images from other images as well as from text prompts, we can also create video from images. Let's take a look at how we can bring our stills to life through motion. I'm here on the home page of Leonardo AI, and I'm going to click on this motion button just to the left of image creation. So if you're still in image creation, you're just going to want to go back and click on motion. In this case, it's asking us to select an image. So I'm going to click on the image icon. We can use something from the community feed, or we can upload an image, which we'll do in this case. And if you head over to your Chapter 2 exercise folder for the Leonardo AI files, go to Image to Video and select the volcano shot. That will upload to the server. And here, we don't have the option of a text prompt, but just a simple motion slider at the bottom. By increasing this motion slider all the way to 10, which it's currently set on my system, this is going to make for a very fast moving image. If we lower this, it's going to be more subtle. Let's start off by creating a subtle motion strength of around 3 and noting how many tokens this is going to take to generate from the existing source image and size. I'll choose generate, and we can see here that this is going to allow us to see this image on the AI Gen page of our library or in the library when complete. I'll choose don't show this again, and let's close this out. While we're at it, I'm going to head back to the motion page and select the image that we just used, confirm it, and then just run this motion strength again, but dialing it all the way up to 10. I'll generate that. And let's head over to the sidebar where we can access the library by clicking on it. And we'll see here the 2 generated video images. If we'd like to isolate it and just see video, we can click on the motion tab at the top. So I'll click on this first image, and we can see here the resolution that it was created in and the amount of movement here in the shot. And let's compare this to the other generation, where we can see the movement dialed down a little bit based on that motion slider that we used. Now, if we download this motion content, it will do so as an MP4 by playing this, that the video generation is actually 4 seconds in length. Inside of Leonardo AI, if I head back to the image creation section, where we have all of our still generations, at any point in time, we can go to one of our generated images, such as these icebergs that we created from a style reference. And you'll notice a little badge here on the bottom left-hand corner that allows us to generate motion video from this image. In this case, I'll dial down the motion strength and generate this using 25 tokens. In the image creation page, if we head to the top, we can see the generation take place here as well, or go to the library in order to view our new motion video generated content. Here's that new video of those icebergs in the MP4 format. which we can download. And keep in mind that we can use a number of different AI services in order to upscale our imagery outside of Leonardo. You don't have the option for upscaling video at the time of this recording. And that is how we can create video from an image inside of Leonardo AI. A few videos ago, we created consistent characters by using a character reference. In addition to just feeding it one image, we can actually train our own models through the use of datasets. Let's head to the Leonardo homepage if you're not already there. And we're going to go to the advanced section where we're going to choose training and datasets. It's here where we can upload a series of photos to train Leonardo AI to create a model for us that we can reference inside of a text prompt. Now, once you're in training and datasets, let's choose new dataset and let's give the dataset a name. If you're following along with the exercise files, I have prepared for you a series of photos of my lovely dog, Ray. So I'm going to call this Ray, and we're going to type in a description. He's a Bichon Frise who's awesome. I'm going to create the data set, and it's now going to ask us to upload a series of images in order to reference it. Now, behind the scenes, there's a couple things to keep in mind. Leonardo AI recommends that each of those images are the same dimensions for the first time that you train it. In this case, every single image that you have access to is 768 pixels by 768 pixels. We also want to make sure that there's a wide variety of photos and there's consistency in the framing of those images. So let's click here to add the photos that we're going to use. There's a subfolder in the Chapter 2 exercise files called Data Set Train, which has a series of Ray photos, which we're going to grab. I'll select the first one and shift click the last one, to which we'll choose Upload. So here we can see a series of photos of Ray, which we're going to use to train our model. And what we want to look for is that the framing and composition is generally the same. And if we see any instances where it's not, we can of course remove a photo from the training set. For instance, this shot doesn't have Ray as close up as the others. So I'll select it and then just choose Remove Images. I might do this with a few more photos, such as this one here. I'll remove this image, but we want to have a minimum of 40 due to Leonardo's recommendations, and we can have a maximum of 50 images with our training. Now that I've removed the photos I don't want in the set, I'm going to start training. And we can now pick a category for our training settings. So we can choose style. We can identify it as a character, which we want to do in this case, or we can identify it as an object. Let's choose this. Let's choose next and give this some information. So let's give the model a name. In this case, my dog, Ray. We can enter a brief description. The model I'll be using to make generative images of my dog, Ray, and we're going to choose a trigger word. So we want to basically choose a word that is not closely related to what you're training and isn't too common. I tried this a bit earlier with Ray's name and got all types of errors, such as rays of sunlight, stingrays, depending on what I'm referencing. So we'll choose something that is rather unique. Bichon Raster Extra. And now that we have this, I'm going to start training. The amount of models that you can train depends on what level or tier you are subscribed to with Leonardo AI. We also get a warning that the training can take a little bit of time. I'll join you back once this dataset has been analyzed. Okay, the dataset has now been analyzed, and I can see it here under training and datasets. If I'd like to see the job status, I'll also see that it's done, and I can view that just to be reminded here of the trigger word Bichon Raster Extra for when I start to use this within a text prompt. So noting my trigger word, I'm going to head over to the image creation section of Leonardo. I'm going to type in Bichon Raster Extra in the middle of a forest. I'll set the model preset just to be Phoenix and make sure not to use prompt enhance because I don't want it to switch my trigger word in this instance. I will keep this simple, noting that all of the other default settings that are being applied here. Let's generate those photos with our data set being referenced. Okay, so here is a version of Raster in the forest using the default model. Again, it's also good to try this in a variety of different styles. In fact, I'm just going to switch this over to Portrait Perfect. Let's try this again. And here is our Portrait Perfect version referencing our trained data set. Again, by playing with this model and making adjustments to our training and data set, we can get different results and tweak this to just how we want it to be. And that is how we can train a data set of photos in order to use it within Leonardo AI and our image generations. In addition to being able to upscale images, Leonardo AI allows you to take any character or object and try to cut it out from its background source. Let's use our friendly turtle that we created a consistent character from. Choose a desired image that you'd like to use. I'm going to choose the one that I have an upscaled image of that we created in the last video, both an artistic and a realistic style. And you'll notice here on the bottom right-hand corner, you've got a remove background option, and it tells you how many tokens it's going to take to remove the background. I'll click on the button, and we'll see that Leonardo.ai is going to get to work. And from this upscaled image, we now have a no background version. Now keep in mind, if I use this drop-down menu here at the bottom left, I can still get to both upscaled versions of my image, not to mention the no background one, and easily download this to continue to work with this character. Now we can see that it's not perfect. There are some remains of the background in certain cases, but this could be cleaned up with another photo editor of our choice. And that's how we can remove the background from a generated image. We're going to be focused on the canvas editor in this video, which allows us to make modifications to pre-existing generative content in an interface that seems similar to other photo applications. We can also produce brand new generative images in new ways using the canvas editor. To get started, let's head to our library from the homepage, which will allow us to see all of the images that we've generated so far. I'm going to go back to my friendly turtle character here that we upscaled, not to mention cut him out of the background, and you may have done this on your own photo. From the drop-down list, I want to work with the original photo, noting that from here we can bring him into motion, we can actually feed him as an image reference or remix the text prompt, adding more detail depending on what we're looking for. In this case, let's click on the three-dot icon and choose Edit in Canvas. This is going to shoot us out to the Canvas editor, and if there was anything here ahead of time, it will be overridden. What we'd like to do is make a modification inside the frame of our image, which is known as inpainting, and what the properties are set here to the right. In order to make a change to a specific region, we have a series of tools that we can access, and this is going to change depending on what mode we're in. I'm going to keep in this existing focus mode and choose the Mask Lasso tool, to which I'll make a really rough shape around the basketball. I'll notice that his hand is also chosen, and I'd like to now produce another type of ball in his hand. I want to type in large bowling ball and pay attention to the settings here on the right-hand side. You'll notice that the in-paint strength is set to be very high, and the reason for this is it's going to look at the contents of your photo and not try to create something that will look awkward or out of place from the lighting, composition, and style and aesthetic that you've already applied. If you bring this down, you might get unwanted results. We're going to produce 4 images, and also notice that we have a default guidance scale. Again, looking at the contents of the image. If we want our prompt to be weighed heavier, our text prompt, we can up this, but eventually we're going to get a warning saying if it takes it too literally, it might change the contents of our photo a bit too much. So I'm going to keep it at its default, and with our selection, let's choose Generate. Leonardo gets to work, and for some reason, with the existing Leonardo Diffusion XL model, we get an error. I'm going to switch that over to the 3D animation style model instead and generate again. And we can see here that we do get 4 images in that animation style of that large bowling ball. this might not be what we're looking for, so we could always cancel, choose another model. I'll choose Kino XL in this case, choosing to generate that identified area that we used earlier with the lasso tool and see what it comes up with. This bowling ball suits the scene a little bit better with the Kino mode. And once I have something I like, which is number 4, although a kind of weird looking bowling ball, this seems to suit the photo, which I can accept. Now I can continue to make changes here in the canvas editor within focus mode, but there's a whole other area to the canvas editor. Let's click on infinite mode. Focus mode allows us to make changes inside of the frame of our photo, outside of the frame of our photo, and even create new content through sketches as well as text prompts. We also get a number of other tools that we can use within this workflow, and we're going to become familiar with this as we move through this chapter. So far, when working within the Canvas editor, we became familiar with focus mode, which allows us a limited amount of control for making changes within our image. Infinite mode allows several more controls for both in-painting, making changes within, and out-painting, extending the length of our generated images, all along with several more tools for allowing us to also generate images. Let's see this by choosing something from the community creations and entering infinite mode. So here's my community feed from the home page. Yours is going to look a little bit different, but I'd like you to find a photo that you'd like to make some changes to, not to mention extend. This so happens to catch my eyes, this photo of the moon over some mountains. And I'm going to check a few things. One is its input resolution is set to 888 by 1176. And I'm going to click on this 3-dot icon in order to edit it in the Canvas editor. It brings that image over and clears out any existing content from the Canvas editor. We're inside of focus mode, but let's click the button at the top right of the interface to enter infinite mode. Here, we have a box in the middle of the image now that is going to define where we focus our work. And I want it to be right over the middle of the image around our moon and the stars up here. We're going to make a change. And in order to make a change, we're going to define this area a little bit tighter. So it's going to focus on in-painting in this section and sampling this section. With that, we're also going to choose a draw mask tool from the toolbar. So we can draw on our image, we can delete content from our image, and we can even sketch within our image, which we'll get to in another movie. Let's choose the draw mask tool. And if I bring your attention to the top of the interface, you can play around with its size. We're going to make a selection over our moon and actually extend that a bit out. So we sample the defining area here. It's okay to be a little bit rough with our selection. And we're going to type in this prompt that I have here at the bottom, which is to add an orange moon and bright stars. Leonardo will tell you how many tokens this is going to take to produce. And this is based on the size of the area that you're making the change to, and some of these settings over here as well. So we're going to keep our in-painting strength to be high, and that is just going to make sure that it looks at the surrounding area of our image. It doesn't give us anything that's going to feel awkward or that it doesn't belong. Keep in mind, this also depends on the model that you choose to use. Currently, in using in-painting, I have the number of images I'm going to produce is 4. We can see the image dimensions that it's going to outpaint is 512 by 512. And my guidance scale is quite low to allow for the text prompt not to be taken as literally, so that it tries to fit in whatever it's going to generate with the existing aesthetics of the photo. For the model, I'm going to choose an albedo base. And with these settings, knowing that I'm going to use 8 tokens, I'll ask Leonardo to get to work and generate some new content within that masked area. Okay, so here is the first now orange moon and stars, the second, the third, and the fourth. Out of these 3, I like the first one the best. However, it is worth trying some other models to see what fits best for your workflow. For the time being, I'm going to accept that and now draw our attention to making changes outside the area of this image. In order to do that, I want to change how large this box is in order to generate some new content. The dimensions of this photo were 888 by 1176, and I'm going to enter that here in the advanced controls. So I'll type in 888, and for the height, 1176. We can see that box get a lot bigger. And in order to move around this box, I want to make sure the selection tool is here at the side. I'm going to try to align it up as closely as possible to this photo and have quite a bit of overlap here on the left edge. It's sampling the aesthetics and style of this photo for the new content that I'm going to generate outside of it through the outpainting technique. In order to enable outpainting, just here, at the top of our settings, I'm going to choose outpaint. Notice that I'm limited to 2 images based on the size. Just like we did before, I'll enter a text prompt here at the bottom for what I'd like to see. I'll say large mountains and trees at night. I'm using the Albedo Base XL, and I'll generate new content outside of this existing frame. So here's the first image that it created. And if I look to the bottom here, I have the option of moving to the second image just to see what it's generated. And if I like one of these two, I can accept it, move this box around and start to paint on the left-hand side, or make changes to the areas of the photos that I don't want. As we can see in infinite mode, we have several more options for being able to work and manipulate our images. And it just so happens that we have more options than just in-painting and out-painting, which we're going to get into in the next few movies. In addition to using the canvas editor to make modifications to our existing generated images within the frame or extending an actual image, we can create content from scratch. To see this from the home page, let's hop back over to the canvas editor. If you still have existing content here, keep in mind you can use the trash icon on the left-hand side of the toolbar to clear it in order for us to start from scratch, creating something new. So far, we've been working within one canvas mode called in-painting and out-painting. If we head here to the top and choose change, there are several other modes that we can use, including text to image, which we're familiar with in the image creation page, image to image, which allows us to make sketch drawings along with a text prompt to create content, and sketch to image, which allows us to modify existing generated images by sketching what we would like to see in the actual frame. Let's choose image to image, and let's define a larger area to work with our image dimensions. Here, with our options, let's choose 1024 by 1024 and click on the select tool in order to move the box to the center of the frame. Now, in order to sketch within here, on the toolbar, there's a sketch tool, and at the top, we can decide on the size of the brush as well as the color that we're going to work with. I'm going to choose the color green first to start with, and we'll make the brush quite big. And here I'm going to just draw right in the center a circle. I'm now going to change the color of this to a red, keeping the brush big. And just to the left of that first circle, I'll draw a second circle and a third circle just to the right, also in red. Now my sketch has gone outside the image dimensions, but that's okay. If I wanted to include that, I would just want to increase the width of the photo that I am producing, not to mention, of course, selecting that box, making sure everything is included inside of it. If you don't do this, it's just going to be ignored, that outside content. I'm going to go back to my sketch tool, change the color one more time to a brownish color, decrease the size of my brush, and draw a line just underneath those circles and 2 legs. So at the bottom, let's enter a beautiful table with apples. Now it's going to keep taking into consideration the colors of the circles that we drew, not to mention the line representing the table. And let's now make some changes to the parameters over here at the side. Input strength, if it's set to something that's high, it's going to closely take into consideration the sketch that you drew. Since my drawing skills aren't that great, I'm going to lower that input strength to be quite low and not have a huge impact on the actual creation. The number of images that we are allowed to create is quite low. And keep in mind the guidance scale I have set to 9, which is the consideration of the text prompt. So with these settings, let's choose to generate. and see what Leonardo comes up with from our image-to-image sketch. So here we can see just from that simple sketch and a very low input strength, we right now have photos that do not closely rely on our sketch. Now, if I press cancel, just to show this to you, and increase the input strength, let's just say halfway, and generate this again, using the same settings that I just inputted, we get something that closely resembles the sketch that we created. So again, depending on your sketch style, you might want to dial this up or down. I'll minimize the input strength again, close to a very low value. And actually, in this case, just change the model to see the different styles that you can generate from your sketches. And here are the last two images, again, with that low input strength and the new Leonardo Kino XL model. And that is how we can use the Canvas editor in order to generate imagery through a sketch and a text prompt. In addition to creating images from sketches, we can draw sketches on top of existing generative images to create new content. Let's go to the library and choose a photo that we've already generated within this course. I'm going to go back here to my favorite turtle that we created in an earlier movie. I'll choose the ultra upscale in this case and just click on the three-dot icon to edit in the canvas. We hop on over here. The photo is a little bit large, so I'll click on the minus button here at the top and also make sure that we head over from focus mode to infinite mode. Let's define the image area that we want to generate. We'll choose 768 by 768. And we can move that box just to be close to the top of the head of the turtle. Let's click the plus icon to zoom in again, and then use the pan tool in order to pan up so we can clearly see what we're about to generate. With this now chosen, let's change our canvas mode from image to image to sketch to image. And we will grab our sketch tool, check the colors here at the top. I'm going to select an orange color in this case. I'm going to lower the brush size. And with this lower brush size, I'm going to draw a really rough baseball cap. Now that I've finished my sketching, I'm going to come over here to the side just to check the settings. So I'm producing 4 images in this case. We have those image dimensions already defined, 768 by 768. In fact, we could probably lower that to 512 by 512. Let's choose the select tool just to make sure the box is over the hat. And in fact, I'll just change its width just a little bit to make sure that the whole hat is encompassed. I'll go to the bottom just to see the guidance scale. And let's type in the text prompt field. I'll type in a sports team baseball cap. And in fact, I'm just going to switch over to the Leonardo Kino XL model. And let's choose generate. And based on our sketch, we now have that baseball cap inside of our scene. Let's cancel this and try this with another model. I'll use the Leonardo Vision XL in this instance. Bring back the guidance scale just a little bit. And with the same text prompt, choose generate. And here we can see the different style of baseball caps that are included. I'll accept this first one. We can continue to create more of our baseball cap using this sketch tool to make sure that it's not cut off, not to mention make additional changes in various canvas modes in order to integrate everything together. And that is how we can use sketch to image inside of the canvas editor within Leonardo AI. In this video, we're going to learn how we can use Leonardo AI to help us storyboard concepts. First off, we're going to use flow state to define a storyboard style. Then we're going to apply that style to another couple images in order to make everything feel unified. In order to start this off, we're going to define our style, first of all, using Leonardo's flow state. So on the image creation page, let's go over to flow state and make a couple decisions. In the cases of our storyboards, we're going to set the vibe, instead of being automatic, to be that watercolor instead. And we're going to hop over to the color theme tab and set the style to be that of a dark theme. Let's close out our styles. And since we're producing for video, we'll choose the image dimensions of 16 by 9, prompt enhance, as well as scroll to generate on. Let's now copy the following prompt into the text field. An establishing shot of a massive billboard glowing above the city at night flickers, broadcasting the nightmare of a teenager with black hair in real time walking down a hall. A crowd watches anxiously in anticipation. With the text prompt and our style and image dimension settings, let's choose Generate in Flow State. Several different watercolor dark color theme images show up here at the bottom. Since I'm not seeing a style that I like in this particular case, I'm going to change the vibe of the style over to Color Sketch, close out the styles, and have Flow State generate several other images a second time. And I like this image right here, and I'm going to ask Flow State to produce more images like this. And just notice to the side that the style for both lighting and shot type now have been filled in based on what we like. I'm going to select this image that was produced down here, and I'm going to choose to upscale that as well as save it using the artistic upscaler, noting the amount of credits involved to produce this image and its dimensions. Now that we have our storyboard style, I'm going to head back to the Leonardo homepage and access the library, where we can see our storyboard hand sketch. If we click on it, we can find out a ton of information. Number one, the prompt details that were added based on the styles that we selected in Flow State, and a very important number called seed. Seed will help us lock down a style in certain models where we can't do image-to-image generation, like this fine-tuned flux model that we're currently using. Now, in order to generate new storyboards, I'm going to do the following. First of all, I'm going to copy the prompt details, as in some of this information will be useful for the creation of our next storyboard scene. And then I'm going to click on Generate with this flux model. I'm right now in classic mode in Leonardo, and I'm just going to paste the prompt, noting that some of the text is depicting the last scene. A large billboard above a city at night displays a flickering nightmare. And I'm going to take that text from a large to crowd and delete it from the text prompt. We'll now copy in the second scene that we want to see, and that happens to be a close-up of a billboard as the teenage boy with streaked black hair and blue eyes reaches a locked door and pounds on it as something snarls behind him. We'll keep in the blurred lines and action poses are key. Just taking a look at our image dimensions, noting that we're on the current flux model that we wanted, and the style is set to dynamic. Let's choose Generate. And as that generates, notice that under Advanced Settings, we also have the option to use a fixed seed. In addition to this text prompt, we could use the seed from the following storyboard generation to lock down the style even further. Let's try that by heading back to the library with the image that we chose. I'll come over here to the seed field and copy that seed number. Head back to image creation, where under classic mode, the text that we just copied over still remains, and head to advanced settings where we'll use that fixed seed number, which I'm going to paste on over. Generate again, and we can see the style of these billboards slightly changes. It's worth trying out on other scenes like establishing shots to make sure that the style is locked down, keeping in mind that in other models, we can steal aesthetic by using a style reference of our storyboard. This particular new model, we still have to wait for the availability of that. Last but not least, here is another storyboard showing a medium shot of the crowd watching the screen in the same style with that seed number. And that is how we can use Leonardo AI to produce conceptualized storyboards for our creative tasks. In this video, we'll use Leonardo AI to ideate a web banner for AI software company. Like all of the generative image creations we've done before, from the homepage under AI tools, let's go to image creation. Now, it should be noted, since we want to have text generated on our web banner, the model you use will dictate how clear the text is. So for an example, let's start off with something which won't produce great text, but could be great for a web banner. I'm going to go to graphic design using that model, and we're going to just set this up as graphic design vector. And let's also set up the image dimensions under more to be as wide as possible, so 3 by 1 using the slider. I'm going to close this out, And let's enter the following prompt under classic mode. So a dark themed futuristic powered software banner with glowing blue and purple neural network visuals. Large text, which is in quotes, should say AI at your fingertips, and small subtitle text should say revolutionizing efficiency. Anytime that you want to have text appear on your generated images, it just needs to go within quotes. In some cases, if you're trying to produce a lot of text, it might not be that accurate. Using this graphic design model, let's generate in this wide aspect ratio. And I'm just going to run this generation again using the Phoenix model. And Phoenix model also has a style here for graphic design vector. I'll close this out and generate this again. And let's see the results of the text generated on each of these jobs. So here is the graphic design model that was chosen with the graphic design vector style. As we can see, the text is not accurate at all. We would probably want to use the canvas editor to correct this if we liked the type of design from this model better. Let's take a look now at the Phoenix model and see how clear our text generation is. So we've got the neural networks, and in many cases we have our desired text. In some cases, it didn't have the text as accurate as we maybe want it to be. Couple options if we're looking to have this text be accurate. One is, at any point in time, we can edit this in the canvas editor that we became familiar with in the last chapter. Okay, let's switch over from focus mode to infinite mode. Take our focus box and place it over here on the left-hand side of the screen. We're going to make a couple changes. We're going to increase the width quite a bit, but make sure that it's focused here on the gray area. We're also going to bring up the render density. It's just going to decrease the size a bit of the height so that we have just a box over this gray area and the text that we're going to try to remove. I'm going to get the draw mask tool and now draw a mask primarily over AI text, going a little bit beyond its boundaries. And now making sure that in canvas mode, we are set to in-paint, out-paint. Also, we'll use the Leonardo Vision XL model, knowing that right now 2 images are going to be created from this. I'm going to type in the following thing here in my prompt, which is a solid gray background. I'm also going to go and click on this icon here, which allows us to enter a negative prompt. And I've already put in text, letters, numbers, and symbols, so it doesn't actually replace the text with something else. With that all set up, I'm going to choose Generate, and let's see what Leonardo AI does to fix our web banner. Okay, here's that first image, and here's the second image. I'll accept that. I can see that it's an okay job with the replace, although we may want to try to paint this a little bit more in terms of perfecting that web banner, or bringing it into a program like Adobe Photoshop where we have full control over perfecting our image generation. And that's how we can create a web banner inside of Leonardo AI. Let's use Leonardo AI to conceptualize an online ad campaign. We're going to head over to the image creation section, and in this instance, we'll use Flow State. We're going to be experimenting with social media ads in multiple formats. But let's start off by going to more and creating an ad for a style that would be good for Instagram as well as TikTok in the 9:16 aspect ratio. We'll type in the following prompt for a shoe company. An Instagram image ad for a shoe company showing a row of exquisitely designed, comfy shoes in various styles. It should say beauty feet, which is in quotes, so that text will appear on screen with the tagline, "Your feet can be this comfy." Now, it should be noted that certain models don't produce the greatest accuracy with text, and we'll see that in the results as Flow State generates multiple images. For the time being, we'll just stick with image dimensions and not worry about style. But if you do have a particular branded style for your company, this is where you can start to clamp down on the vibe, the lighting, the shot type, and the color theme to go along with your branding guidelines. All right, I'm going to choose Generate. And we do get several different shot types with shoes in a row. I kind of like this colorful style, although the text isn't perfect in this case. So I'm going to click on more like this, where we can see it's chosen the color theme of complementary. And it seems like we have another image here that's looking pretty good, along with the tagline with the proper text. So I'll choose more like this again. And as you can see, we even get different logo design ideas. And once you find one that you like, you can click on it and we can choose to upscale and save that image. So I'll use some credits in order to do that. And let's head back to the Leonardo homepage where we can access the library and anything that we did choose as well as upscale. If we'd like, we can click on the last image. And for the time being, I'm going to copy the seed from this drawing. So I'm going to choose to generate new imagery based on this. Under advanced settings, I'll choose to use a fixed seed and copy the seed that I just pasted. I'm also going to paste the original text prompt. And last but not least, change the image dimensions so that we can preview this in a different format. So I'll just choose the Instagram 4x5. Let's see what Leonardo comes up with that fixed seed that we used. In addition to this, we can head back to our library and go to that ad that we liked and make sure that we copy the prompt details as well. So in this case, I'll overwrite the original prompt that I wrote. We'll place in the prompt that Leonardo wrote for that particular style. And let's now choose to generate some new images. And now we can see some of these in the 4x3 style that we can take advantage of. And keep in mind that we can take that original ad and also in-paint and out-paint on it to design it in different image dimensions as well. And that's how we can use Leonardo AI to help us ideate some social media ads. In this video, let's use Leonardo AI to conceptualize a children's book cover. One of the best places to do this is inside of Flow State, which we became familiar with earlier within this course. Flow State will produce tons of different images right away from a text prompt, allowing us to explore different styles and themes that are available from models as well as elements inside of Leonardo. First off, let's start with a text prompt and also make sure that our book cover has text on it. So you're going to type in image creation in your text prompt field, making sure that you're in the Flow State tab. Type in the following: a floating jellyfish village in the sky, where a small group of kids ride bioluminescent jellyfish through pastel-colored clouds. So the book is titled Jelly Dreams and should use a children's font. So with that prompt, let's make some changes here to the side. First of all, in terms of our style, rather than have the vibe as automatic, we already know that we would like to have more of a sketch style for our book cover. So we can clamp down on the vibe. We'll leave the lighting and shot type as is. And under color theme, we did mention that we wanted pastel colors, so we'll choose pastel tones. For image dimensions, let's get something more book cover friendly, so I'll click on more and use the slider here at the top of the aspect ratio field to choose something 5x6. I'll close that out and then just notice that prompt enhance is enabled. So it will help out our prompt to define it more if required. And I have private mode, as well as I'll need to scroll to generate new flow state imagery if what populates in the middle of my screen isn't enough. With these settings, let's choose generate. And here we have a variety of book covers with our clamped down vibe style in Color Sketch, as well as the pastel stones being used. Now, I really like this image here, so I'm going to choose more like this. The other categories, both lighting and shot type, get filled based on the cover that we like. So I like this image with these two characters front and center. And now from Flow State, I'm going to click on the upscale button next to the photo that I like. Since I have a paid account, use the upscale multiplier up to 2, upscale strength, which is going to balance creativity, detail, contrast, and similarity. I'm going to leave the upscale strength at high. We'll make this artistic so that Leonardo has a little bit of creative freedom in the creation of this book in order to make it look better for the larger format. So noting this and how much it's going to cost to upscale this image, I'll click the necessary button. And if we head back to the Leonardo.ai homepage, we'll be able to find our newly generated images in the library. So I'm here in the library. I'll scroll up to the top. Here's that Jelly Dreams image and the Ultra upscale that I just performed. If I require any more changes to the book cover, I'll click on the three-dot icon here in order to head back to the canvas editor, which we became familiar with in the last video. And you'll notice that the canvas was cleared from previous selections. We get a good look at our image here in our focus mode. And if we need to make any changes to our book cover, inside of focus mode, we could select things through the use of a lasso. And at the bottom of my text prompt here, I'm just going to type in remove circle, knowing that I'm going to now generate 4 new images. While using the Leonardo Kino XL model, I'll choose to generate. And let's see what Leonardo comes up with in the place that I lassoed in replace of that circle. As we can see with our first image, it removed the circle and pretty much in the 3 out of the 4. And that is how we can visualize a book cover inside of Leonardo AI, taking advantage of all the tools available to us from flow state onto the canvas editor. Congratulations to you on making it to the end of this course. As you continue your LinkedIn learning journey, there are several courses that might interest you on the topic of image generation as well as generative AI. If you're looking at generative AI for content creation on a larger scale, check out Ashley Kennedy's course, Generative AI Skills for Creative Content, Opportunities, Issues, and Ethics. If you're wanting to explore a competitor, I have a course on Midjourney, both a quick start as well as a longer version that you can check out that covers a lot of the concepts that we covered in this course, but how to work in that platform. Last but not least, I have a course called AI and Generative AI for Video Content Creation that looks at the overall ecosystem when it comes to tools for image, video, as well as audio on the AI and generative AI landscape. Thank you. I'm Nick Haraz, and I'll see you around LinkedIn Learning sometime soon.